Hello everyone, let's learn about the HTTP protocol. HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. Some of you might have heard about the term called hyperlink. What exactly is a hyperlink? Hyperlink is any link that you can click on which takes you to a specific website. Any text that has a hyperlink is called as hypertext. Hypertext is often referred to as HT in short. You'll find a lot of references to hypertext when it comes to the internet. HTTP is one such example. In Friday's lecture, we are going to talk all about the HTML format. The HT in HTML stands for hypertext. Whenever you talk about a protocol, you have to always follow a specific set of steps. Step number 1 in HTTP protocol is always going to be to identify the remote resource that you want to get from the remote machine. For example, let's say that we want to get home page of a particular website. That might be getting index.html or it could be about.html depending on how the website is configured. Or you might want to get a logo from the remote machine which can be represented using logo.gif. There are three things which are required whenever you want to send a HTTP request to a remote machine. The first is the domain name which identifies the remote machine. The next is the port number which identifies the program running within the remote machine. The last thing is the name of the resource which can be thought of as the file name on the remote machine. When you funnel all of these down together, you're going to get what is called as URL. URL stands for Uniform Resource Locator. I'm sure all of you have used URL extensively whenever you're using your browser. Here is an example of a URL. I went to the Wikipedia page for URL and I took the URL for that particular page. Let's talk about specific components of this URL. n.wikipedia.org is the domain name, followed by which I am mentioning the port, both of which are separated by a colon. Finally, I am mentioning the resource which is going to be /wiki/URL. Since we are using a HTTPS connection here, we could choose to not mention the port number as port 443 is the default port for HTTPS. Let's talk about how exactly we can specify all of this information as part of the HTTP request. The best thing about HTTP protocol is that all of the information is plain text and you should be able to read any of the associated information with that particular protocol message. Let me talk about the HTTP request message over here. This particular example mentions get method and also mentions the name of the resource that we want to get from the remote machine. You also have other associated details as part of your HTTP request. Let me show you an example of a HTTP response. There are a lot of details over here. Let me quickly talk about some of these details. The first thing which I want you to notice is the name of the resource file that we want to get from the remote machine. In this particular example, that's going to be about.html. Where are we getting the content of about.html? That's going to be at the end of your HTTP response over here. All of the data inside about.html is going to show up at the bottom of your HTTP response. There are few other things associated with the HTTP response. The first thing is called as the status code. 200 OK refers to the fact that your HTTP request was processed correctly and you received the response correctly from the remote machine. Couple of other examples of status code include 404, which refers to file not found, and 500, which refers to internal server error, which means that something went wrong with the remote machine internally. There are other details as part of the HTTP response over here, including the length of the content, which is going to be the data inside about.html, also the type of the content, along with more information about the remote server. One other thing which I want to talk about in terms of HTTP request is the method that you're using as part of the request. Pretty much for the purpose of CS220, you only need to know two methods. The get method enables you to get data from the remote server, and the post method enables you to upload data to the remote server. An example of that would be uploading this particular lecture video onto YouTube. I introduced to you a lot of terminology associated with computer networking. We sort of went through a crash course on computer networking if we were to do it as part of one lecture. If you're really interested in learning more details about how the internet works, I would strongly encourage you to consider enrolling into CS640 course, which is the Introduction to Computer Networks course. I'll wrap up this video here. In the next video, I'll talk about request module, which is going to enable us to download dataset from the internet.